Hi there, welcome back to my channel. My name is Vero, and in today's video I'm going to be setting up my November weekly spreads. Before getting into the plan with me, let me just show you my spreads from my monthly plan with me, just in case you've forgotten. So on the left we have my quote page and my November cover page. Then we have my monthly log, my habit tracker, my finance page, and lastly my gratitude log. If you have watched my November plan with me for my monthly spreads, you'll know that this month I'm joining the campaign Team Seas in support of our ocean. Team Seas is a program launched by Mr. Beast where he aims to collect 30 million pounds of trash from the ocean. If you want to contribute to this cause, you can go to teamseas.org, and for every dollar you donate, £1 of trash will be removed from the ocean. This month, as I'll be sort of traveling, I don't anticipate to be using my bullet journal all that much, so I've decided to consolidate 3 weeks of weekly spreads onto 2 pages. The last weekly spread will just be on a separate page because I don't have enough space to do everything in these 2 pages. To decorate this spread, I've actually decided to use this kind of small Dutch door, where on the left side of the Dutch door I will have an ocean painting, and on the right side I'll have those 3 weekly spreads. To start off this painting, I had learned from my previous mistakes, and I'm actually painting the sky first for a change. So the sky has the sun rays starting from the center, meaning that I want the middle of the sky to be lighter than the outsides, which is what I'm doing right now. So I leave a blank space in the middle and I'll come back and fill it in with lighter paint in just a bit. Because this picture is taking place either very early in the morning or at sunset, I'm painting in the color purple and a bit of pink and yellow and orange at the bottom of the sky where it hits the water to give it that sunset or sunrise effect. One thing I still haven't quite nailed is to lighten up the sky, because it doesn't need to be this dark. I just don't know what I'm doing wrong. I mean, I should be putting a bit more white into the paint mixture so it turns out lighter, and it's something I need to continue exploring in the future. I'm going to come back to painting the sky in a bit, but let's move on to the water. And for the water, I've just mixed in some blue, black, and a bit of yellow to give it a more turquoisey colour. And I'm just going to paint it all across the bottom for the ocean effect. And I totally love painting solid colours, and it improves my technique to see how well I can keep the colour consistent throughout the whole spread. And I'm pretty happy with how this turned out. Like, I managed to keep the colour consistent, and after that I just have to go in with my shadows and highlights. The next step, as you know, is to use a darker paint colour to paint on the shadows of the water. So that's what I'm doing, and at the foreground of the painting I'm using fatter strokes, and closer to the back I'm going to be using thinner strokes. I should have used more thinner strokes at the foreground though, because I feel like it looks a little bit chunky, and so it's a bit more difficult to see the water form from my painting. So maybe I should have started with thinner strokes and gone even thinner. But I think I was also losing patience because I've been painting for quite a few hours now, so I just kind of wanted to get the process over and done with. So that was not the best thing to do, but it's fine. The painting looks relatively good anyway. For the life of me, I cannot remember what photo I was using as a reference to paint this picture, so if you do recognize this photo, just let me know in the comments down below so that I can link to it in the future, but unfortunately I just can't remember which photo I was using. After painting out all the shadows, I started to go in with the highlights, which is something that I've been doing throughout all of my spreads in November. For the record, I should have gone in with more strokes of shadows because I don't think it's enough, but I think I sort of catch up with things by going in with my highlights, and I just place my highlights above each of the shadows, well, not each of them, but a lot of the shadows, to give it that wavy effect. And this is a time lapse to see how it looks after a long time. I struggle a bit with the highlights, but I keep playing around with them to try and get the effect that I want, but in the end I think it doesn't turn out as well as I want, so I just move on to using some solid white to give it the sparkly effect, because I'm just getting annoyed at this. So with the white I just place it on some of the highlights and give it a kind of wavy look from the white water splashing, and also give it that kind of highlighted effect from the sun rays poking onto the water. As I mentioned, I was going to go back onto this sky to add in some details, and so what I'm doing is adding in a sun and some sun rays. To add in the sun rays, I water down the white paint as much as possible so that when I drag it across the page, it leaves a sort of white trace to illustrate the sun rays, but not opaque enough so that it blacks out anything in the background. And then I decided to add a little sun, which is the color of orange and yellow, in the center because I just felt that that seemed right. The color turns out a little bit brown, but it's fine. And another mistake I make is to not wait long enough before the paint is dry to place my white wash for the sun rays, because it does lift off the paint in the background a little bit, so bear that in mind if you're ever painting around with sun rays. And as I flip the page over, I now have 1.5 pages to fit 3 weeks of weekly spreads onto my journal. To do this, I'm splitting the second page in half so that I have 1 week per half page. And as the dimensions of this Dutch door are kind of diagonal, I have to sort of fit the weeklies into that diagonal space. I do this by dividing each of the pages into 6 different boxes, and on the left side, so on the Dutch door, I have Saturday and Sunday on the same row so that I have 2 different boxes for those. Then on the right side, I have the sort of inverted weekly Dutch door on the righter part of my page so that I have 2 boxes for Monday and Tuesday instead of 2 boxes for Saturday and Sunday on the same row. To get the diagonal aspect correct, I flip the Dutch door over and I trace out in pencil the area where the Dutch door ends, so that way I can draw my lines accordingly and so that nothing is overlapping or peeking out of the Dutch door when it is folded over. If you're interested in the other dimensions of this spread, each daily box is 6 squares in height, and then depending on where it is on the page, the size of the box varies because I need to fit it in on the diagonal spreads. So I just use a ruler and the spacing of my Dutch door to figure that out. To finish off the spread, I just write Monday to Sunday 2 times on the different daily spreads, and then this is done. I'm really excited to show you guys my next weekly spread because this painting is definitely one of my favorites this month. It is another painting of the water on the left page, and then on the right page I just have a horizontal weekly spread for the last week of November. So to start off this painting, I laid down some washi tape, and then I'm just going to paint my background in a very solid blue color that I'm going to stick with for the whole painting. You might have noticed that I did one thing different, and I actually sprayed my page with a bit of water before placing my paint down. And this is because I've been making the mistake of putting too much paint on a dry surface and then it doesn't spread around as nice and smooth as I want it to be. So I wanted to try it out by spraying some water on my page first and then seeing if that would work better. And to my surprise, it did. So I think I'm going to be sticking to this technique if I have to paint out solid backgrounds for the next paintings that I ever have to do. So for this picture, I'm very excited because it is just the ocean. There is no sunset, there is no background, it's just water, and then you'll see the sun rays and the sun reflex on the water as I go along. For this weekly spread, I'm going for soft waves across the sea, and when I say soft waves, I mean waves that aren't crashing, so there's no white water reflex to be added into this painting. I start off by creating my shadows, of course, and I give the shadows a kind of curved effect so that it creates that soft wave effect that I'm going for, and I just spread that across the page. Each of the curves fit into a sort of line across the painting so that I have different layers of curves, so different waves flowing through my painting. The next step, of course, is to go in with the highlights, and I just go back and forth with the highlights and the shadows as I've done countless times before to create that water effect across my page. And with the highlights, I make sure that I place them above the shadows and not over every single shadow so that I'm actually highlighting things and not just adding things really randomly. Although eventually it does end up kind of being a bit random sometimes as well. Once I've done the highlights, it's time to go in with the white sparkling bits to show the sparkle of the water, as well as the colourful bits to show that the sun has been glinting on the ocean. And to do this, I'm just going to go for a solid white as well as some orange and yellow to really bring out that sunset effect across the ocean. And after removing the washi tape, I'm ready to lay out my weekly spread. And my weekly spread is just going to be a horizontal weekly spread where I'm using these Archer and Olive stickers from one of their subscription boxes. I can't remember which one it was. I think it was the second one. I'm not sure. Where they have just the numbers, and I've put them down my page and then used a pen to draw out 6 different boxes, 5 of the same height, and then the last one for the weekend, which is slightly bigger. And then I just put a line I put a line 1/3 of the way through each of the boxes. And in the first box, I can then write events that I have for that day or for that week. And then on the right side, I can have my to-do list. I actually have a last spread that I'm going to be showing you in this video today, and it's my monthly review. I've laid out some washi tape, and I'm going to be painting the same design that I used for my finance tracker. And again, if you haven't seen that video, you can click on the link in the description down below. And what I do is I paint out a solid background, leaving some spots that are lighter and adding some spots that are darker. I first go in with the darker side and then go in with the lighter side. Then, after doing all that, I use a white paint and trace out these little squiggly lines that are sharp and not curved to give it that surface water look. I also use the same method to write out the word review that's sort of like squiggly and sharp so that it looks like it's part of the water, even though technically it's just the word review. And I think the effect looks really, really cool, and this is how it turns out. And to finish things off, here is a very final flip through of my weekly spreads and my review page. So here we have my painting and the 3 weekly spreads. Then we have the painting on the left and 1 weekly spread. And finally, my review page. If you made it to this point in the video, leave a wave emoji down in the comments below, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!